friends, and welcome to my DIY lanyard and keyring tutorial. So the first thing that we need to do is make sure that all of our work surfaces and our hands are nice and clean, free from any dirt, oils or lint. You'll be working on a sheet of baking paper. Here I've got a ceramic tile. If you've got one of those lying around, that's fine too, but otherwise the baking paper will be your best friend. So here I've got 6 colours. You'll have 5 or 6 colours depending on what kit that you've bought. And to get things going, what I need to do is condition my clay. So polymer clay, polymer from the word plastic, we need to condition it to get all of those plasticizers moving so that it becomes nice and workable. So what I'm doing here is I'm twisting it, I'm squishing it together, and in the end what I want is for when I bend my clay like I just did then, I don't want it to crack. So here I still need more conditioning. I'm rolling it, kneading it, folding it, just making sure that's nice and workable. So it should be almost like a Play-Doh consistency once it's ready to go. So super flexible, giving it a little jiggle, just getting everything all nice and warmed up and moving in there. So rolling it like a little sausage. So each one of these colours, I did initially think 3 beads, but I got 4 beads out of each colour. So again, it's up to you, totally your creativity, what kind of size and shape beads that you would like to make. To start with, I'm just going to make some pretty standard run-of-the-mill round beads, and then afterwards I'll do some different shapes and some different patterns, just so you can get some ideas and some inspiration for your own creations. So here I've portioned everything out into 3. And now that it's all conditioned and all workable, I am ready to start rolling my beads. So you've got your portion, and what you want to do is, with a bit of pressure in between the palms of your hands, roll that bead, roll it together. As you can see, I've decided that that's a little bit too big, and I've taken a chunk off, and again rolling again into a ball. So you will get a little bit of, I don't know, I guess an imprint from your skin on here. So any fingerprints that you touch on it, an option for that, if that's not something that you like the look of, is to use some gloves, but you can't really, tell that much. So here I'm using a hole making tool. In your kit, you've got a grey one, and gently twisting and easing that through, rotating the bead so that you're not squishing it with your fingers, rotating the skewer or your hole making tool through. And you kind of want to go from one side most of the way and then from the other side. This is so we're distorting the bead as least as possible. If you just get your skewer and you kind of just like shove it through like I am here, what's going to happen is your bead's going to be out of shape, but you're going to also crack the top of it. So my bead's out of shape. You can see where I've held onto it tightly with my fingers, and you can see where that has poked out the end. So if you do have something like that happen, or at any point where you've rolled a bead and you're like, it's probably not looking the best, all you need to do is squish the air out of the middle of that hole that you've made so that you don't have any air bubbles in your clay, and then you can just roll it again. So until these are baked, at any point you can re-roll any of your beads. So again, I'm having another go, and I'm just gently twisting, rotating my bead. I'm not holding onto my bead too tight, otherwise I will squish it. I'm rotating the both of them to get that hole making tool through. Again, neatening up the hole from the other side as well. So when you're doing it, you want to make sure that the hole making tool goes in more than just the point. You get up to the thicker part of it so that it's the same thickness all the way through, so you can get your cord through. So here I've tried to make a white one. Now white is quite a tricky colour to work with just because it's so light. Any little lint particles or any dust, it's going to pick up on the white. So what I recommend is what I've done here is I've mixed some grey fleck through with it. So if your kit has the granite and you're after a white look, I would recommend that. If you don't have the grey granite, you can crack some pepper and put into it, and that will give it the same look. Or you might like to try a different effect where you've used a bright colour and you're marbling it through. So I wouldn't go for a plain white one. It does just take a little bit of skill to get those whites nice and crisp. If you're not so concerned about any little bits of dust that you might pick up, absolutely go for a full white bead. So here I'm just showing how I will mix two colours together. So with the DIY kits that I've put together, all the colours have been chosen to go really well together. Some of the colours have even been custom mixed, so I've done this part for you so that the colour palette works nicely. So if you are going to mix some colours yourself, we're going to follow that conditioning process and put those two colours together. We're going through the rolling, making it into a sausage. So here I haven't blended my colours completely and I've got a bit of a marble look going on. But pretty much we're rolling, twisting, folding until you can't tell that you had two colours to start with, until they're all nice and blended together. So here I've just sped it up a little bit because it is a little bit of a longer process. So that's why with those custom colours this has been done for you, because it is a little bit time consuming. And until you've had a play with how much of one colour should go with another, when I was learning to colour mix, I made a lot of browns, a lot of kind of like weird purple colours. Yeah, something that you want to avoid, especially if you've only got a very limited supply of clay. So here we go, I've mixed them all together and I have, it still looks white, you're still going to get the white look, but it's going to hide any of those little imperfections that you pick up. So again, putting my hole through one side and then through to the other. So all of the beads that are sitting there in all of their different colours, I just fast forwarded, cut out that part of the video because they were done in exactly the same way. So with each of my colours, I portioned them all out so I had the same amount. So I quartered all of my colours and conditioned them, rolled them, and then gently put the hole through. When you're putting your hole through, I would put the hole through almost straight after you've rolled your bead. If you let them sit for too long and then you go to put your hole through, what's going to happen is that clay would have gone a little bit hard again and you can get your clay cracking as you're creating a hole in it. If you've worked your clay a lot, so your clay's feeling really warm and really sticky and you keep trying to put a hole through and your clay ball is just not looking good, you can set it down for maybe like 5 minutes. It would have hardened up a little bit and then you'll be right to put the hole in. So here I'm having a go at some pattern beads. So there's a few different suggestions for you. Again, absolutely your creative license on what you would like to create. Here I'm making a spotty bead. So all I'm doing is breaking off tiny bits of another colour, rolling them into balls and just pressing it on a little bit. So I'm not squishing it in all the way because once I've got all of my dots on, I'm going to roll that bead again so that it all creates a nice smooth surface, but you want to push them on enough that when you put your bead down as it is, those little spots that you've just spent all of that effort rolling and placing on there, you don't want those to fall off. So just rotating it as you go, having a look, make sure that you've put them on evenly, you don't have any little gaps. Remembering too, you do have a top hole and a bottom hole, so I mean, if you have left any gaps, you could put the hole through there and it will disguise it a little bit. But I find the best way is just to make sure that you have quite an even bead to begin with, and then you don't so much need to worry. Alright, so checking it over, not too many more left to go. Oh, another blank space there. Alright, and I've got it covered. So now that I've got it covered, again, just rolling it up, just the same process that we've done with the other beads. And everything has squished in nice and smooth, and I'm ready to put a hole in my bead. So I first started off with polymer clay 4 or 5 years ago, and how I started was I really love putting different outfits together, and I'm a teacher during the day, so this is just like my, I don't know, weekend hobby. And when I was getting dressed, I wanted a lanyard to go with pretty much each of my outfits. So I found some polymer clay lanyards, but then I worked out it was going to be quite expensive to have a lanyard for each one of my outfits, and I thought, oh, they just look like they're so nice. I want to have a go at making some of these myself. So I got all the kit, and yeah, I started making my own lanyards to go with my own outfits, and then from there it just kind of grew and grew. So we're now doing earrings as well, trinket dishes, lanyards and key rings. You pretty much make those the same way, and DIY kits, because again, when I first started out, I really wanted to learn, and there was so much out there for earring makers, but not so much for lanyard makers. So here I am going over another kind of pattern. This one is one of my favorite techniques to use. It's so versatile. I use it quite a lot. It's a rip and tear technique. So what you want to do is, after you've got your ball there, is your other piece of clay, you want it to be really quite thin. So remember, whatever you're adding to your bead, it's going to bulk up the size of it. And all you're doing is, like the method suggests, you're just ripping and tearing a little bit of clay off, and you're sticking it onto your bead. So this works really well on earring slabs as well. You might like to do a rip and tear with different colours and create like a terrazzo kind of fake stone look. I've just gone for the one colour here, and again, I'm getting fairly similar sized pieces, and I'm spreading them out evenly over the whole bead. Again, you might like to do a couple of large pieces, a couple of small pieces, but I have found from my own personal experience, the beads do look the best when they're kind of uniformly covered, because they are quite small, and you're going to get a little bit of all of that patterning all around. So I've covered it all, I've rolled it all together, and we're ready to put a hole in it. So another thing to be mindful of too is when you're using dark colours, so especially your blacks, that dark green colour, colours that are super bright, like your bright yellow, and even the purple, because they've got a lot of pigment in them, you need to be mindful when you're going from that colour to a lighter colour. So here I'm working with black, and you can see in a minute I'm going to pick up the white, and you'll be able to see some of that transfer off onto the white. One way to get around that is, after you've used a darker colour or a super pigmented colour like a bright pink or like a yellow, bright purple, is to go and wash your hands afterwards. So I use my baby wipes for that. I've just got a packet of cheap wipes there, and will wipe my hand over to clean them. You can go wash them with just like a mild soapy water, even just having some wet paper towel there to wipe your hands off. So see here, I've picked up some of that colour It is a little bit hard to tell on the screen, but when you're making it in front of you, you'll notice that I'm changing from two very different colours. You're going to notice a little bit left over on your fresh piece. So here I'm making a bit of a different shape. I'm making a cube. So just kind of forming it into the shape of a square. Squishing it down, I'm using the flat work surface that I'm working on, again to kind of make it a bit more level, and then we're doing the same thing to put a hole in. So just rotating it, trying to keep the shape that we've created. So one thing that different shapes are for, like circles, I normally use just round beads and I really like that look. If you're going to use different shapes, it's really good if you're using all one colour. It looks really effective like that. Or if you have quite a few different shapes going on. So me personally, I would do, so here I've made like a flat disc and I'll put that in. You might like to make a long oval bead, totally up to you. So you could make more than just circle beads. You might like to make all square beads. That would look pretty nice. So here I've got my green and my blue together, and this clay I've already worked with it a little bit, so it's already a little bit soft, and I'm just mixing the colours together. So twisting, and we're going to go for a little bit of a marble effect. So here what I'm doing when I'm mixing is I don't want to totally mix my colours together. I still want to see the two definite colours. So twisting it, rolling it out into a sausage, and then rolling that sausage, kind of curling it up. It's going to mix all those colours up and not just look like a plain stripe. You're going to get to see that marbling effect coming out. I've gone off the screen a bit there, sorry about that. Alright, so once you've got the amount of marbling that you're happy with, all you need to do now is roll that into a ball or into whatever shape you're working on. So I've gone a ball for this, and again working that hole making tool through. So another thing that you might like to play with around along with different shapes is different textures. So far all we've done is look at flat textures. You might like to add something to yours to make different patterns stand out, or just make a plain bead pop as well. So there's a few different things you could use for textures. You could use a toothpick, you could use an old toothbrush, you could use some like a bread and butter knife or a plastic knife, some aluminium foil. There's heaps of different things that you might like to use. So here I've got everything laid out. Just noticed a nice flat disc. It might be something that would look good on this lanyard or on this keyring. So just making something there to go with it. Okay, so what I'm looking at now is texturing this ball. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread it back onto my hole making tool. So if I add any texture, I'm not going to distort it and kind of, I guess, wreck the size of the hole that's going through. So remember, that's all we're using, that hole making tool, to put a hole in so we can thread it on. If you have not the right size hole through, you're not going to be able to thread your cord, whether that's for a keyring or for a lanyard. So like I said, you can use a toothpick to add texture. That's what I'm using here, and I'm just going in all of the little dots that I made, and I'm just again making some more, I guess, dots on the inside of that dot. So it's going to texture those little patches there. On the black, like black and this brownie colour, they're quite contrasting anyway, but if you have a bright colour, that's going to make that pop out quite a bit. So we're working with the black here. I'm conditioning that bit, getting all of my plasticizers moving, rolling, rolling, rolling. And I have the ball and I'm ready to go. So what I'm doing now is I've got some white that I have conditioned, and I'm using that rip and tear method to just add a little bit of interest to it. So this is something that you could leave as it is, or after you've done this, you can add some texture to it again. So I would always recommend putting your hole through before you add your texture. I know that I said it's important to keep the hole in it properly while you're adding texture, but if you go the opposite way and you put the texture on first before you put the hole through, what's going to happen is you're going to have to hold on to your bead, and the pressure from your fingers is going to wreck the texture that you put on. So put the hole in first and then do the texture afterwards. So again, going from both sides. And your lighter colours are something that the texture sticks out really well on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my toothpick again. I'm just going to drag that through, and that's going to create some line work on there. So notice that a lot of my pieces that I ripped and tore were quite long and skinny. So putting long and skinny lines in there to make that stand out even more. So here I definitely have enough beads to fill everything that's in my kit. So whether you've gone the lanyard kit or the keyring kit, whether you've got the 4 pieces or the 3 pieces, I have enough beads here for that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a couple of extras just to show you some different combinations that you might like. And with your lanyards especially, it's quite easy to change the lanyard beads out. So even if you've got some beads left over, what you can do is just pop them to the side. You might want to pop them in a little container or a snap lock bag or something. And you can actually switch out the design just by keeping the same string. So that's something that you might like to do as well. You can have one lanyard and a couple of different options, which is really cool. So here, conditioning the white, getting everything going. So with your clay that you've either got, we've used all Sculpey, we've got either Sculpey Primo or Sculpey Souffle. When you're touching some of your clays, some of them might feel already a little bit softer than others. That's just because they're just a little bit of a different, I guess, range of clay. They're going to go together perfectly. You can bake them all together, that doesn't matter. The souffle is just a little bit of a softer clay to begin with. So yeah, a little bit about the background. Other makers, if this is something that you've really enjoyed doing, other makers do use Fimo and Cernit. They're another 2 clay brands, as well as Sculpey. Again, totally up to you, but me personally, I do prefer the Sculpey, so that's what you've got there in your kit. Remember, always thinking about what colours are going to go together, how you might set up your keyring or your lanyard. So if at any point you look and you're like, look, that bead was like a good idea in theory, but now that I've seen it with the rest of them, I'm not loving it. That's what I've done with my black bead with the white patches there. I've looked at it with my other bead thinking, not sure what else I'm going to make to go with it. Not loving that bead with that spotty one. I'm just going to, again, squish the air out of the middle of the hole. I'm going to marble that up and I'm going to go again. So absolutely fine at any point. If you have your beads all laid out and you're like, oh, not loving it, you know, it's clay. We haven't baked it yet. It's so easy to have another go. The only thing is, if you have a pattern clay and you squish it and you start again, you're going to lose that pattern on it, but you can have a marble marble look, or keep blending it until you've got a whole new color, which is really cool. So I've decided that tiny little marbles are going to be better than that patchy one. So here I've got my marbled clay as well. I've got white and blue, and I'm going to keep going with that. So twisting and rolling, twisting and rolling, and I'm actually going to blend these colours together so that I have a nice lighter blue. The blue's pretty light anyway, but just something a little bit different. And I am going to make a different shape with this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make, I guess, a long oval bead, so a bit of a cylinder. So you're going to make them the exact same way, where you're kind of rolling it into a bit of a circle, a bit of a fat sausage, and flattening the ends off. So here I'm starting to look pretty happy with the colour that I've made, giving it a little bit of a squish together, rolling it out, ready to make something new. That's the beauty of it. It's so versatile. You can make so many different things. Like with a piece of clay, it's incredible the things that you can do, and it's so lightweight as well, which is good because you can make quite large pieces and they're super easy to wear. So here I've rolled my piece of clay into a circle, or into a ball rather, and now I'm kind of rolling that ball out, flattening both the ends as I go, and rolling it out into a bit of a cylinder shape. So the hardest thing when you're working with a shape like this is that when you put your hole through, that you're pretty much in the middle of the hole on the inside and on the outside. It is quite easy with irregular shapes that you have a hole that goes a bit skew with through the center of your bead. So just be mindful when you're doing that. Again, super steady as you're putting your hole through. Okay, so flattening off both ends, and again placing that in the kind of, I guess, bead collection that you think it's going to go with. So my two little marble beads, they were quite sticky because I've worked with them quite a lot. I just let them sit for a couple of minutes, and now I'm right to put the hole in without them losing their shape. So in the next video, what we're going to go over is how to put our lanyards and key rings together. So once I've made all of my beads, the next thing that I'm going to do is put them on a sheet of baking paper. So the baking paper that you've got, just transfer that onto a tray, pop it in the oven, and you're going to want to bake these at about 120 for about an hour. Don't exceed temperatures of 130. If you do that, your clay is going to get a bit brittle, and some of your colours, especially your lighter colours, they're going to burn. So anything left over, I'd pop that in a snap lock bag, and then I will see you on the next video.